About the ring modulator. Now, if you're not aware of ring modulators, where have you been? But no, seriously, ring modulators were like one of the core instruments, one of the core functions used in traditional electronic music when composers were really starting to get into the weird sounds that were produced through electricity. So the ring modulator, basically, it gives you the sum and differences of two different waveforms simultaneously. So all the harmonics are added and subtracted. And see, the problem with explaining a ring modulator is that it is a mathematical process. And I am very, very inept when it comes to mathematics. So if you would like a mathematical explanation for what a ring modulator does, you're going to have to go someplace else. But basically, it just takes the harmonic content of two different sources and gives you the sum and differences of that harmonic content. And it's just a sound that we've heard a trillion times throughout all time. Well, not all time. Throughout time since at least the 60s. Anyway, the ARP 2600 included a ring modulator, as you absolutely had to have back then. And yeah, this one is no different. And so let's listen to it instead of me just blathering on and on about it. Okay, so that's the sound we have going. So the ring modulator exists over here. And it is hardwired to have a sawtooth from VCO1 and a sine wave from VCO2 going into it. If we want to hear the pure sound, we have two hardwired outputs. One of them is in the filter section. The other one bypasses everything and just comes out in the VCA. So let us set the ADSR to something reasonable here, and then we'll just turn up the ring mod sound. So when you have two sounds, despite their frequency content, that are at the same frequency, you basically just get a new timbre. That does not sound like what happens when you mix a sawtooth and a sine together. This is something different. This is the outcome of putting those two together and getting the sum and differences of the harmonics. So that's cool in itself. But you might be saying, okay, so is that what it's for? Really, it's for stuff like this. So if we do things like, okay, what's the best thing to, well, I mean, if we just do the sample and hold on each of them. This is not working. If it sounds like the radio to you, yeah, there's something radio related to this that George Mattson always tries to explain to me, and I always screw it up. So. Yeah, so like if we did, let's just do this. This is what we're going to do. If we took the output of oscillator 3 and then just messed with the pitch of this oscillator. Okay, so you recognize that sort of sound. That's what your ring modulator typically does. And it's really great for that. But, if you're not doing, original avant-garde, inaccessible electronic music, you can use it like we were doing earlier, where you just use it to create pretty cool timbre sounds. Like if I could just hang this cable up. Okay. Let's get these frequencies back to something reasonable. So yeah, if you're just, and you can always do that here in the mixer you can get the output from the ring modulator. Typically you could, if something was happening. Why are we not getting that? Oh. And then making changes in the amounts of the waveforms going into it. And you can plug any waveform in there that you want. It doesn't have to be these two, and you will get different outcomes. So then if you were to allow VCO2, which is participating in the ring modulator, to also be modulating the filter, and then you're doing stuff like this. Everyone's all like, oh, the ARP 2600 is pretty simple. Okay, so yeah, you can get some really cool things very quickly. There's also a DC setting, which I wish I hadn't done all kinds of weird stuff, because it would be easier to demonstrate it if these things were all in tune with each other. But okay, let's. The DC setting, it's DC coupled. The audio is AC coupled. I've never been super clear on what those mean, but in the AC mode, you're likely to get pure sum and differences. In the DC mode, you'll get a little bit more of the original waveforms into the sound, so it'll sound less. You'll just have a little more of the original frequencies and timbres, which is useful if you've got all kinds of weird stuff going on. So basically, the ring modulator makes weird noises. But more important than that, and this is something I didn't know for many years, but you should know because it's so cool. Here, let me get these back in tune with each other. I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but yeah, we got to do this. Okay, so we've got these cool sounds, right? Okay. So something that's super important when you have this in DC mode, guess what? It can be used as a VCA. One of the great limitations of the ARP 2600, I would have said many years ago, is that it only has one VCA. No matter what you do, you're either going through the one VCA or you're not getting a VCA. That's not true. Because the ring modulator, by virtue of the magic of math I don't understand, if you put a control voltage, sub-audio voltage going into one of the inputs, it will act as a voltage controlled amplifier. George Mattson is shaking his head right now going, I've explained this to you, Mark. But yeah, so if you, for example, if you were the sort of person who had your synthesizer set up so that you were using the ADSR in your VCA. Here, let's make this really choppy. Okay, so that's your ADSR right now is controlling, or your ADSR is controlling the voltage controlled amplifier, and that's the sound you're stuck with. You're not going to get anything else. So then let's take the unused AR and let's plug it into the ring modulator, and then let us take the ring modulator output and direct it beyond the VCA. So we no longer have a VCA happening in this signal. And I'm going to put it in this input. So here is our normal sound we're dealing with. Actually, let's use 3 so we're not messing with 1 and 2. Okay, so then here's what's coming out of the ring modulator. And as you adjust the A and R of the AR envelope, of course, we have a really boring, this is less exciting. Let's put a sawtooth into the second channel. There. So obviously you're hearing amplitude following the AR envelope, which is extremely cool. And you can control the amount. Well, right now we're controlling the volume of the sawtooth, but you can also control the amount of the AR affecting the sound. So here's the thing I've been thinking. So we have, and this is me incorporating another part of this that I've meant to talk about, but let's just do this experiment before I've made this video. If we have 2 VCAs, that means we have duophony with 2 different oscillator sounds that can go to 2 different VCAs, resulting in a sort of like articulated duophony, which is really cool. So like we could, right now we're hearing that sawtooth. We could do that, and then we could put like this square wave that we're getting from oscillator 1. And let's see, am I crazy here? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So it has a different timbre than the saw we're getting through the ring modulator, and then we can bring it up. So we basically have 2 completely different sounds going on with 2 completely different amplitude articulations. And I'm going to do a thing that I hadn't really thought about doing. I'm going to take keyboard CV2 and direct it to our first oscillator. So now it's reverting, but you can hear that the 2 different oscillators with their different amplitude articulations are independently articulated note-wise. You can hear the one returning to the... There is something that I bet you can adjust on this, so every time you get the note off, you're not getting the repetition. But still, I mean, listen to that. It's actually really cool. You're actually playing two different notes with two different timbres with two different articulations, which is cool. So yeah, that is a very crude portrayal of the ring modulator found on the Korg ARP 2600M.